All right. On the beginning, I would like to say something about feelings. And do you know that guy, I think? And this is Edward Beer. And the thing I would like to focus on is sometimes we think about something, we are doing something, and we think that's the only one way to doing something. But sometimes perhaps we don't think, but on not doing something with things we are doing on everyday basis. But sometimes, for me, actually, it happens from time to time that I think that, all right, the thing I'm doing right now could be done better, or faster, or more precise. But I don't have time or anything else which could help doing something. For example, who's doing shopping from here? So I'm going shopping, I don't know, to the same shop twice a week, and my wife always giving me a list. And I'm, I don't know, rational, logic, let's say pragmatist, and I like doing shopping when I have a list, 25, 30 positions, and I like doing every position after position. And it happens that I have to go around the shop 3-4 times searching all the stuff, because I like doing the shopping that way. But sometimes I think that if I spend at home, 5 minutes just to prioritize the list and set the order correctly, I wouldn't spend so much time in shop. But on the other hand, for example, for developers, sometimes if you are doing things in context of technical debt, you know that it can be do better, even just I have some more time for that. If I could spend some more time for that, I could do it better, but deadlines are coming and you have to do something, and it's very good if you even just mark that it should be done better, but it doesn't happen actually sometimes. This is about the feelings. So this is something what I will mention because it is one of the things we were feeling about this, what I'm going to talk about. And this, what I mentioned, is some kind of case study talking about some kind of project which we have and the issues which we have with project, which came us to the way that we were thinking about the UAT testing. So there was some kind of project which we have. 10 people working on this project. It was done agile way, something about in the point of time, which I'm going to talk about right now. It was 5 or 6 months the agile was introduced. The project was on production over 6 years for customer, and there was 5 times more development than maintenance, so it was quite interesting for us and going very well. And it was over 400 kilos lines of code, so quite a big, let's say, project. But customer came to us and one day and said, okay, we thought that everything is going right, but he said, all right, I was expecting that you can deliver more. Right, one thing. Quality should be better. That's not what I was expected. It was happening not every time, but sometimes. And we didn't implement any reasonable features. We delivered a lot, but from the customer view, it was not very big features and not providing really good functionality to the system. And he was even thinking, all right, perhaps we need another system, right? So yeah, it was some kind of stressing situation for us, all right? We thought that everything is going right, but it wasn't. If customers saying something like that, we are thinking, all right, we did something wrong, probably, but we are not aware of that. And but customers was willing to help us or work with us to find the things which are bad and not working correctly. So we have started to searching issues. First of all, we do our internal job, think about, all right, a few months ago, we have introduced Agile. Perhaps it was the reason that the customer said, all right, it's not working because, I don't know, this project was not ready for Agile, but there are projects which are not, every project is ready for Agile or can be done in Agile way. But we thought that all the assumptions for this project was met, because another project which we have doing with Agile are going well. And that was perhaps the reason we thought about the reason, but perhaps the organization was not ready, for the customer, or customer what was thinking about this. And perhaps we did some wrong, we did implement it wrong with the customer. Yeah, it was the thinking, okay, we did some mistakes probably, okay. But no, it was not an Agile. We were thinking about, all right, something else is wrong. It was, in the context of Winnie the Pooh, all right, this feeling that it can be better, but all right, what's the idea? What's not working? And after we made some meetings with customers, checking what's not working for them, because it was working for us, but from their perspective, don't. So we find out that the user acceptance testing is something very, very important for customer, even more important than just delivering something, delivering things. Because the system was very critical and have many important features that they want to sustain very stable. All right, and we just sat with customer and find some areas which we talk about. And one of the two first records saying that the customer didn't have enough time for testing, they didn't have enough resources, meaning people who can do that on time. And as I said later, there was a lot of things to test. Actually, they are testing some kind of part, but they wanted to test a lot of more. Perhaps this was one of the most powerful reasons that they say that something's wrong. And the delivering, planning versions, streams was very difficult. And we decided to, all right, say how it's looking like right now, but what we to do to make it better. And providing better visibilities and planning for version and streams. And the toolset for testing, which customer is using, it was his internal test tool, and he's doing tests internally. We didn't get the point of view how he's doing that, but we only get defects from test. And one more thing was, we delivered test environment for them. And then testing was doing on their side. But we decided, I think that's the most powerful reason which I'm talking about this today, and our experience with this case, that they decide that, okay, they don't have time and they don't have resources, so could you just provide all the organization of testing for us? So it was very interesting. And it was one, it would be not very common, but they wanted to do first say, all right, we want you to do that, but when are we going to release that? All right, it's another thing, and we want to decide about that later. And it was something, the main, let's say, reason for setting everything one more time. And they expect that if they say, all right, this is done, all right, but we want it to have the next version, which is, I don't know, releasing in next 2 weeks, for example. It was very, very small amount of time to prepare let's say, everything set up to make a UAT testing right. And additionally, they said that regression is very important. It's very important for them to sustain the stability of the system. All right, and idea. So we have talked with them, and right now, I'm going to talk about this, what we do as developers the best, I think. We'd like to try to automate, analyze everything and automate. So first of all, we proposed a setup of all the UAT testing, everything what should be connected from the beginning, from the project to the test case, test plans, defects. And there was some assumptions about that. So the traceability is a must. So they expect the traceability of the entities which are here starting from projects, change request, which should be connected with requirement. Requirement should be connected with test plan. Test plan is a set of test cases, and while executing the test case, you create a defect. It's just the base for us, for start, that we wanted to set up, which I'm going to talk about. That's the beginning of the way which we go through with the customer. And very important assumption was that test plans has to be done on time. That means that they have to be prepared very quickly and provide to the customer who could, in a very quick way, do the test. Test plan is also the set of test cases, and if you are testing the test case, it should be very simple and straight way to create a defect and send it to the developers and connect this defect with the test case you are testing right now. And one more thing is that project or change request is some container. It, of course, has a lot of more information, but it's a container of requirements. And as developers, what we do, we are working on Jira. And this is the tool which we use to set up all this stuff there. And we just implemented it on the production. We tried to use it with the customer, and we find some issues that it was not working correctly. I mean, the assumption was all right, everything was okay, but the test plans, preparing test plans and executing test plans was too much time. And usability of test cases was difficult. I mean, when we created the test plan, we were creating the test cases under the test plan, and when we wanted to create the next test plan, it was a lot of time for us to create the next test plan with some kind of test cases which were in other test plans before. So we felt that, all right, it's still missing something, and it was, let's say, the most important point in the experiment, in this case which we were doing, which we have developed for the customer, and we have this feeling, all right, something can be done here. And after that, we just thought that, all right, time of execution of test case should be as small as possible. Yes, it's very important. And creating a test plan should be really fast. It was two assumptions that was not fulfilled before. And after that, we introduced something which we called test case template. Test case template is something what, let's say, allowed us to create test plans very fast. I mean, the first thing, if you know the test cases, what should be done, you are creating templates in a repository. It's a very huge repository because customers had over 15,000 test cases, so it was very, very big amount of test cases. And the first thing we wanted to do, create as many test case templates in the repository, and then if you create a test plan, you are choosing only the names of the test case templates from the repository and create test plans very fast. It was the main thing which we just introduced here. It was the critical point for next thing. So one important thing was that creating this test repository, because if you are creating test plan from scratch and creating test cases, it's taking some time, but creating all the repository of the test cases was very significant. It was assumed a lot of time for that. And from the other way, creating test plan after that, we find out it was 15 times faster than before we have repository. And after that, we done second retrospective, which said, right, average version was containing from 15 test plans, each had 80 test cases, which was 1,200 test cases for version, just very huge amount. Before, I the statistic which we have that the customer was doing something about 200, 300 test cases for each version. But right now, he was able to do 5 times more test cases before the version was released. And time spent for preparing this repository has returned after 2 months. So it was a very short amount of time and very good for us and for customer. And right, we find this way working quite well, but as a developer or as a provider of something like a organization of UX testing management, we tried all the time to introduce better things to improve all this process. And the next thing which we find that much better is just to connect test case templates with requirement to get better visibility. I mean, before the requirement was connected with test plan, but when we changed that, we could create on the beginning, if you have analyze, and after analyze you have the requirements, and the next thing which we can do was create test case template and connect it with requirement, and why during the testing of test case by tester, it was very easy to find the requirement which you are testing. And this requirement was also the entity which grabbed every data which you can find useful when you test it, when you test the test case. So it was very, let's say, helpful thing for tester doing the test. And after that, the thing which we do, we just only create test plans from the test case templates. Before, we just allow it to create additionally test cases which are, additional. They are not in the repository. But after that, we find out that for better traceability, for better reusing and finding the statistics, it's much, much better if you can create only from test case template. All right, it's additional work for someone who want to do a new test case template, because the first you have to create test case template which will be reusable, and then you can create a test plan using this test case template. And that thing allowed us to track all the instances of test cases which was created from this one template. And next thing which we find out that as a developers we always do the analyze, and we found out that the idea of creating test case templates is actually a part of analyze. If you have actually the document with requirements, the next thing before starting development, it's very good to create test case templates in a repository, and it is helpful also for developers. It was for us very, very good, because when you create the software, when you write something, you know actually what will be testing, what templates are created for this requirement. And after the next retrospective, we introduced a process that, first of all, we create a test plan, which was for our internal Q&A. And the first thing which was doing that, the same plan, which was after that provided to the customer, first of all was created by us, was executed by us. And after that, the same plan, new plan, was sent to the customer. And it was the thing that could allow us to better control of predictable defects and create a willingness to unforeseen defects. We find out that we are really much familiar with this version, with these test plans, and we are really prepared for the customer feedback for that. And we wanted to introduce something else. I mean, get a lot of more information from that. And next step, which we do, was connect test plan and requirement with Sprint. It was very helpful because it allows us to do some kind of reports, but this kind of work with, organization of test cases, we find out that this, right, it's giving us the, let's say, pleasure, which allows us to, improve all the time, all the setup which we have, like developing something, automating something. It was very interesting for us, and adding a connection with Sprint allow us to find some two very important reports which we had. I mean, the first one, we could find out which requirements in Sprint are not covered by test cases. It was very important because sometimes it happened that, if you don't have this information, automatically someone has to, make the research and find out what's covered by tests and what's not. And another report that could say which test cases are connected with requirements not present in Sprint. So perhaps there was one thing that someone just created test cases which are not familiar with the requirements from the Sprint, or there should be requirements which are missing. All right. Summary. Some faults which we find out after that, after some kind of number of retrospectives. Of course, there was more, but it was the most important one. And very important for us was having all the processes, I mean, defect management, project and change management, and test management, one tool. It's a very nice thing. Okay, it's not necessary, but I think that we couldn't imagine to do it another way. And to think we learned that still searching any updates, automation improvements on this process was very exciting for us, and time-saving, mainly time-saving, and predicting some kind of issues which we could find later. And also we find out that we were still searching, or going to the, to the point, to the aim which we want to get, but there was a time that we have stopped and find out that the way, or the point where we are right now is good enough, but we still try to go further. It's very important that, the way was finding something is not so important as the searching. And we find out that this was one of the projects, but we just adapted it to another one project, and next one, and there was, difference between all these setups. So there's no one solution, but it's very worth to try to find some solutions in the context of the things you are doing. So I find it very interesting. And as a software provider, because, we provide service, setuping of all the test management process, that's totally different from internal QA, right? We know about that, we think it's similar, but no, it's totally different. And it was very, very exciting information for us, and very good thing which we learned. All right, thank you very much for your attention, and right now I ask Maciek to come and have the next. Thank you.